was banned in your school. Story 1. I've posted this story in the past, but it still makes me laugh. When I was in high school, my school adopted a uniform policy my senior year that required us all to wear one of 3 colored polos and a pair of khaki pants shorts. In the wintertime it would get quite cold in the school, and the only long sleeve fleece we could wear was 80, and was a piece of that didn't even come close to keeping you warm. I refused to buy one and had the brilliant idea. I was going to bring a blanket to school. I looked through the entire school policy handbook and couldn't find anything telling me I couldn't do it, so for the entire winter I would just wrap myself in a blanket while in class. I then graduated that year and went back to visit for Christmas break, where I was told that because of me they had added blankets to the unacceptable attire portion of the school handbook. TLDR, I made blankets unacceptable attire at my high school. Story 2. Jolly Ranchers. It got to the point where my middle school kids were dealing them like drugs and making money. Still not sure why kids would pay $1 for a Jolly when they can buy a bag of 50 for like $5. Story 3. In my middle school, if we couldn't see the whiteboard, we'd yell enhance and make the stupid corresponding hand movement. It got to the point where it was so disruptive the word enhance got banned. Story 4. My high school with a student body of 2,000 got banned from a local McDonald's temporarily. Edit. My school is in IL 3 hours from Chicago, and we got banned by McDonald's because a student broke lights and a TV on a half day. Edit 2. I don't know for certain, but I'm guessing it was enforced by them not serving people who looked like students around the time school started and ended. Story 5. Walking in groups of more than 2. You can guess how long that one lasted. Edit to those asking. The rule applied to those year 9 and above 14 because supposedly the younger kids 11 to 14 found it intimidating when there were more than 2 of us walking together. Story 6. It's a story I told a few times ago, but here it is. In high school we were banned from using the word killed in gym games, boards games, etc. Use gentle words like out, eliminated, etc. When one girl was killed in a car accident, people said that she was eliminated or out. We had a handful of stupids bans like this. Also, war games were fine as long that we don't see the actual killing. World of Tanks and War Thunder was fine, but Halo CE wasn't. Edit a word. Story 7. Using the computers in free IT rooms at lunchtime, even for work, when we asked why. According to IT, school computers had a clock where they could only be on for a certain amount of time every day, or they switched themselves off. BS. Story 8. Normal shoes. We had to bring special school shoes and change them every day. There wasn't enough space to store them in school, so we had to carry them every day. They had to have white soles, not to leave marks on the floor. Story 9. Pagers and hats. It was in the school guidebook that being caught on school campus with a pager would result in expulsion from the school. It was believed that pagers were associated with drug sales. The hats were because the teachers couldn't see the students' faces in class. I went to school in the 90s. Story 10. Going to the second floor of one specific building. Officially because there was a threat of the floor collapsing, but I still suspect Dumbledore hid the Philosopher's Stone there. Story 11. My primary school banned the Nintendo DS because someone wrote fuck you to another person on the picture chat thing. Edit. It was the DSDC PictoChat. Story 12. Wallet chains. Yo-yos thought they could be used as weapons, backpacks in the classrooms because of Columbine, and Pokemon cards because they encouraged theft, fights, and gambling. Edit O. And we had to wear lanyards with our ID cards in them because of 911. I am aware that this is dating me. Edit. Yes, people I know, yo-yos were initially made as weapons. None of us did that though. It was also the reasons why we couldn't have wallet chains. They were afraid would each other with them. Also, I thought of one more thing we couldn't do, which was roll up one pant leg because it was a gang thing. But we were a small town school in the middle of Michigan full of farmers, so I'm not exactly sure what they thought would pop up. Story 13. Yo-yos. Every year my elementary would have some yo-yo salesmen come and do some cool yo-yo tricks and sell yo-yos. Every year the school would set up a yo-yo corner for a week, so you don't hit everyone around you. Story 14. Home lunches, which I'm pretty sure was illegal. Some freshmen decided to make drug cocktail brownies and got so up ambulances were called. I was walking through the parking lot and an administrator confiscated my sandwich because he said he couldn't identify the contents. They were meat croquettes, that guy. Backpacks. Firecrackers previously weren't Mountain Dew dead animals that weren't purchased specifically for dissection vials of blood worn as jewelry doors on the stalls of the boys' bathrooms. Story 15. Locks on our lockers in middle school. We have no clue why. Something that happened back in the early 90s apparently. The result was people getting stuff stolen out of their lockers all the time and the school blaming us for it by saying if you didn't want it stolen you shouldn't have brought it to school. I had a really nice jacket that my parents got me for Christmas stolen from my locker by the school's troublemaker. I got it back from him a month later, but by then it had a permanent stench of weed and had cigarette burns in the fabric. Story 16. Facial hair. They thought it looked unprofessional and they even had disposable razors so they could force you to shave at school if you didn't at home. Story 17. Not just our school, but our entire district banned headphones on the bus. Because a student was hit and killed by a car crossing the street at a bus stop. They claimed that she was hit because she was wearing headphones and couldn't hear the car coming. Never mind the fact that the driver was drunk, speeding, and ignored the big yellow thing with lights and stop signs. Also, if you were caught wearing them on the bus, at a bus stop, or even in your own driveway waiting for the bus, you could be suspended. Story 18. In the late 90s, we wound up with Magic the Gathering banned from the school. The logic was as follows: magic is played with cards, poker is played with cards, allowing magic means they would have to allow poker. Poker inherently has gambling, allowing magic would be condoning gambling for the students. The hilarious part of the reasoning was missing the fact that ante was a standard part of the rules at the time, and thus magic already had gambling and the wild poker connection was unneeded. Story 19. Pens. We used to have a complex pen bartering system and it annoyed the out of the teachers, so pens were banned. Also, bathrooms were banned for a good 3 weeks my junior year of high school because some kids were caught smoking there, so the school decided that the solution was for us not to go to the bathroom. Edit: since people are asking, the pen bartering had different pens held at different values. Clicky pens and gel pens were more valuable than regular pens because you could write prettier with them. We would trade them for homework answers, food from other people's lunches, or more pens. Story 20. Pennies. A few kids figured out that you could hold a penny between your thumb and index finger, and snap, and the penny would fly. They would spend class winging them at each other's heads when the teacher was turned. Within a week, the game had spread to the whole school. Everywhere you went, you could hear the pings and thunks of little Lincoln missiles. You learned to duck every time the teacher faced away, lest you get caught in the crossfire. It lasted an entire 2 weeks before the penny ban. Story 21. My stupid friends and my stupid self did everyone in a favor and got Axe body spray banned from school, albeit via very strange reasoning by our school. We were using some flammable perfume cologne spray. Wasn't even Axe to create flames. It's flammable, so you can, make a little tiny torch or spray stuff and light it on fire. Which we were doing at the small corner of a section of hallways we had claimed as our own to eat lunch away from the masses. Long story short, one kid lit a paper ball, then just threw it into a garbage can on our way out and just left it there unbeknownst to me. Entire thing eventually goes up. It was one of those big gray rubber bastards too, and ended up completely melting down to its base, causing a lot of smoke from burning trash and rubber. Entire school was evacuated and couldn't go back in until they aired it out. Someone saw and ratted saying we were lighting thing with Axe body spray. 3-month suspension while they review it, trial with the school board and whatnot, barely escape expulsion because the principal really spoke up for us even though our VP tried to get us expelled hardcore. Paco and AXE body spray was forever banned at the school, so, worth it, I think so. He got not God putting attachments onto school emails. Some kid in the year above brought in a pirated copy of Minecraft 1.5.2 on a flash drive, spread it to everyone, and soon we were all playing it in the library. Story 22. TI-89 calculators. My buddy, now an excellent software programmer, programmed his calculator to allow him to effectively cheat on tests. He was a grade ahead of me, so I wasn't allowed to use a TI-89 for calculus the following year. I think the teachers kind of shook their heads in amusement at his antics. They knew he was brilliant, and a genuinely good person, so he didn't get punished too badly. Story 23. At my primary school for up to around 1,011 years old, I remember running being banned for like the last half a year I was there. At recess, everyone had to just stand on the yard talking. I remember some kids who would see how fast they could speed walk before getting yelled at. Story 24. Clapping. We had a breakdance contest at lunch and a kid hit his chin and it started bleeding. We clapped and cheered and he gave a thumbs up and walked into the nurse's office. After lunch, the principal gathered all the boys into a classroom and screamed at us until he turned purple. We weren't allowed to clap anymore, and if we did, instant OSS, was some bullshit. Story 25. Pixie sticks. Because a few years prior to me being in that school, a bunch of grade 9s had a pixie stick snorting contest. That same school banned jumping over a fence because a kid got his pants cut on the top of the fence and massively injured his nuts. Story 26. Spiral notebooks. In 1990. Thanks to my stupidity and unwinding the wire out of the book then poking myself in the eye with it when not paying attention. Story 27. Hoodies with the hood up inside the buildings. Bandanas, which was supposed to eliminate gang symbolism, but mostly just irritated the girls because this was circa 2000 or so, when bandanas in the hair were actually cool, and Nerf guns. Story 28. Heelys. I wore them to school for about 3 months and would occasionally roll around the halls. Eventually more kids started wearing them and the teachers got sick of it and banned them. Story 29. We were banned from carrying around plastic spoons. We had this game, Assassin, where you would get the name of a random student and have to find them and poke them with a plastic spoon. Apparently, it was so disruptive that they needed to ban plastic silverware. Story 30. In 3rd grade we would play poker during indoor recess, but were prohibited from doing so after a few kids started rolling fake cigarettes and cigars. They also banned Yu-Gi-Oh cards in the 4th grade because we developed a black market exchange where kids were using real money and ripping each other off. We were a wonderful bunch of children. Story 31. Using the bathroom. Because one time some pricks destroyed the boys' bathroom, so the principal decided that he would lock the door and just open it when the lunch break starts, but it was the only time the janitor had for cleaning it. Even if nobody used the bathroom he had to clean it. So everybody started peeing in the garden, and things got back to normal. Story 32. A newspaper created by some of my classmates at a public high school. It was harmless, just had puzzles, weather reports, advice columns and student-submitted articles. I think it was banned because there was an article complaining about the way the school parking lot was designed or something. Story 33. Double-meaning t-shirts were banned, mostly because of me. My favorite shirt that I only got to wear once was Free the Tadpoles and had a few on the front. Edit. I remembered another shirt that had a picture of Pennsylvania with the town Intercourse, Pennsylvania labeled, real town, but they didn't appreciate the geography lesson much. Story 34 Big Nuts. Big Nuts was a statue of a bull about 18 long and 10 tall that had very large testicles. He was our impromptu senior class mascot. After several days of the class talking about Big Nuts, passing him around, and point out his big nuts, he was confiscated. Once the principal signed the rightful owner's diploma, he promptly asked to have Big Nuts back. Needless to say, he walked out with a diploma and Big Nuts. Story 35 South Park shirts in middle school. This was like the dawn of the South Park era, where parents and teachers and the media started losing their minds about what it would do to our children if they watched a show with cartoons that cursed. Oh God, look at us now. For reference, it was around the same time as the Eminem and Marilyn Manson witch hunts. Also, Britney and Justin were dating and matching their denim outfits. Story 36 Memes. Last year, a fellow student at my school posted an offensive meme of another student and was suspended for a week, on a first offense. The best part was, the person who was supposed to take offense thought it was funny as all, and thus began the Freaklaus movement. Story 37 American Smarties. Back when I was in 6th grade, some students broke them into dust and sniffed it like cocaine. Edit added more context to not confuse the British and Canadians of Reddit. Story 38 Blue Eyes White Dragon. Not Yu-Gi-Oh cards, just Blue Eyes White Dragon. The teachers and principal didn't know that card belonged to a card game. Nobody claimed the blue eyes either, so it went in the trash. Oh, and this was all said during morning announcement each day for a week. Story 39 Bicycle Pegs. In elementary school, I'd pick up girls by offering them a ride home on the back of my bike. One of the girls' moms called to complain. I had them confiscated. Story 40 My teacher told us a story a few weeks ago about his times at a rougher school in my city. The district has banned tobacco but didn't ban vaping. This was before it got big. This led to one kid in his class to start ripping fat vapes in the back of the class. My teacher tells him to go to the office, but they couldn't punish him because the rules didn't ban vaping. The next day the district banned vaping, but the kid never got in trouble for that time he vaped. Story 41 Senior Blurbs in the school yearbook. Stupidest ever. One year, some genius thought it would be funny to make his blurb spell out FUCK, and the faculty got so pissed by it they denied the next year's seniors the right to have a little blurb under their face in the yearbook, but not the year after that, just my year seniors. Nerds, man. Lockers, they were scared of what we would hide in them, so we had to carry all of our stuff in a mesh backpack. A lot of students complained of back shoulder issues from having to tote around books all day, but they refused to give us lockers. This wasn't even in a bad area. It was a small town in the middle of nowhere. Story 42 Soda. The one thing we were looking forward to in 7th grade was the vending machines. Sodas anytime you want. Yeah, California passed a law and they replaced them all with Aquafina machines, yay. Story 43 Blow-up dolls. Which should already be banned, yes, but we had a few people blow them up in the middle of a pep rally assembly, and just pop them up like beach in a crowd. Story 44 Yu-Gi-Oh cards. I went to a Lutheran school, and they thought the way we played with them at recess, more holding them up and using them in a special power in some story we were making up than playing the card game, was us worshipping them. What was cool was that Pokemon wasn't banned because instead of the evolution scaring them, it was looked into and they were alright with the themes of friendship and teamwork it presented. Story 45 They tried banning binders too, but I straight up told the teacher I ain't going to my locker and digging for individual papers. I said that was bullshit, and I still carry my binder to every single class. Story 46 We managed to get hide and seek banned when we turned it into hide and beat. Essentially anything you can think of, ad punching, that was my school experience. Story 47 I went to a small Catholic college that was run by an order of Benedictine monks. Any occult material was banned, tarot cards, books about witchcraft, and primarily Ouija boards. I have some tarot decks now among other things, but I will never touch a Ouija board. I'm no longer a practicing Catholic, but the way the monks, who were generally very liberal, talked about tarot cards and astrology was very different from how they spoke about Ouija boards. These are men who have witnessed exorcisms and they basically said to have fun with witchy but steer clear of Ouija boards. Story 48 Dyed hair, piercings, any socks that were not white, going to the toilet during class time, though that only apparently happened a few times and the principal got roasted for it. All these things got you detention. My school wasn't even a private school. We were public school scum. We called the principal umbrage. Story 49 Seniors getting early release because they literally only had 2 classes instead of the usual 4 classes all day. Pretty much a bunch of the seniors that were supposed to go home early since they literally didn't have class would just sit around in random classrooms with their buddies being disruptive. Well, one thing led to another, and in my final semester of high school, I, along with every single other senior that didn't have a job directly after class, ends up having to take a full class schedule and be mentors, teacher assistants pretty much in classes that we had already passed. So milking the dumb new system along with the excuse of my graduation project, my supremely cool computer teachers ended up letting me spend the last half of my days in high school sitting in a dark room building a low-range gaming PC. Yes, I could have built it in like 30 minutes, but senioritis had set in heavily. And yes, they knew exactly what was going on. If you're reading this, Mr. Matthews and Mr. Duncan, thank you for backing up a lazy senior in his time of need. You guys are the best. Story 50 Masturbating in the boys' restroom. They put up signs that said to stop masturbating because the plumbing couldn't handle all of the semen. I understand 1 or 2 weirdos who would at school, but enough to clog the pipes. Why there were that many people beating their meat, it was bizarre and hilarious. Edit fun fact: I got bored and read the whole rulebook once and discovered that knives weren't explicitly banned. You couldn't threaten people, and they did mention getting in trouble for having a weapon, but that's very open-ended. Story 51: Prom Proposals. Because a few years ago a guy decided to ask this girl out for prom, and he had a huge moving truck decorated with the word prom on it. Since my school's driveway is a one-way in and out, this truck blocked the entire exit while he was waiting for the girl after school for a whole hour, blocking hundreds of students from leaving the school. Story 52: Connection to Steam is blocked to prevent students from playing games. Unfortunately, the IT is oblivious to the fact that something called offline mode exists. Story 53: 311 T-shirts. K is the 11th letter of the alphabet, so it was rumored that 311 was a reference to the KKK. The drummer actually graduated from our school, so they were pretty popular at the time. Story 54: Well, it can't be avoided. So hey, race a list of this that I am personally responsible for or was involved in that was banned at my elementary school. 1 Bakugan, 2 Pokemon toys and cards, 3 Tetherball. You deserved it for calling me fat. 4 Sitting on trees. 5 Total Drama Island like games. 6 Ant Farm. 7 Watermelon eating contests. 8 Milk chugging contests. 9 Swinging on between desks. Oh, the story my teacher has for this. 110 Selling of sand rubus red glass shards. We found 11 Refusing to square dance with someone. Sorry, I was also purposely separated from friends in 5th grade because we caused too much trouble. Questions about these adventures are free to be asked. Edit formatting. Story 55: Way back in the 80s, the school dinners were bad, not mildly gross bad, but so disgusting that in my old primary school, the students would order mash and chips, chunky fries, for the non-Brits rather than risk any of the meat options, so they banned that. Packed lunches. FTW. Story 56: Pokemon cards. They basically started a black market among the elementary school kids. Those who weren't in the know got shafted, and complained to their parents. Case in point, my friend convinced some poor sap that a Weedle was better than a Charizard, and they should trade. Come on, son. Story 57: Tamagotchis. Surprised this hasn't been brought up already. Surely it wasn't only my school. Also at one school I was at for a year, family moved a lot. Marbles were banned, but 1 week a year we were allowed to bring them in. I was new to the school and hadn't played with marbles for about 5 to 6 years and thought it was some kind of joke when it was mentioned. Surely enough, come Monday the next week, thousands of marbles, entire areas set out like weird stadiums. It became apparent pretty quickly why they were banned too. A great deal of the kids set up these weird sort of courses in the dirt, where you would roll your marble at theirs, and if you hit there's a certain distance, you got to keep it. If you didn't, they got to keep the marble of yours you used to roll. Of course these were all in dirt, and they would make little pots ravines in the dirt to make it impossible to knock theirs. I'm not sure if it was just the affluent area that turned the kids into marble carnies, but there was definitely something weird going on there. Story 58: Throughout my 4 years in high school, we were transitioning from an open campus to a closed campus. My freshman year was the first year the rule was in place, and it progressively got stricter. At first it was just a matter of promising the campus supervisor you were just running to a store and you would come back, but by sophomore year he was requiring you to leave a backpack as collateral. Junior year he needed to know you, and finally, senior year you had to have a free period. This led to certain kids having an entrepreneurial advantage over others if they had an established relationship with a campus supervisor. I would take orders for energy drinks and such and sprint over to the store to fulfill them using this advantage. Other times we would load up on $1 spicy chicken sandwiches from Carl's Jr. and resell them at lunch for $3. By the time senior year rolled around, I had 2 different falsified counselor schedules showing I had either all even or all odd periods free. Because we were on a block system, I could get past any faculty at any time. The whole concept of closing the campus was done under the guise of student safety, but in reality, it was to lower the partial attendance issue when kids wouldn't come back because the school would lose funding if a student wasn't there for a certain percentage of the day. I have since heard they have moved back to an open campus. I imagine it was costing more in supervision than they were actually losing in funding. Story 59: So hey, race a story from my high school. Our lunch break was 30 minutes and it was in the middle of a 2-hour class. So every Monday a group of 4 of us brought a George Foreman grill and skipped the first 30 minutes of class to cook burgers throughout lunch and go back to class with a fresh meal. I read our student code of conduct and we didn't break any rules because we weren't cooking with and open flame George Foreman is a press, nor were we skipping school because we were still on campus. The teacher started talking about a group of students who were making burgers during class and I brought one into class and my teacher just said, "You're the kids cooking," and she just laughed and didn't do anything. I went back the next year and they changed the definition of truancy and added a George Foreman to the banned items. Story 60: Plastic knives were banned in my high school. They were also confiscated. No other punishment along with butter knives if you brought them with you in your lunchbox. We were still served items at lunch that needed to be cut occasionally, and we soon found out that the plastic spoons were plenty sharp enough. Bonus: the school was really close to banning plastic forks at one point when a group of kids started taking handfuls of them at a time, lowering the middle 2 tines, and screaming the Batman theme to Nana 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 while running down the hall. They'd find the little Batman forks lying around everywhere and got really tired of it. Story 61: Headphones, by extension CD players, tape players, the burgeoning MP3 player, and other Walkmans, Pokemon cards, activated cell phones. They were fine with them if they were deactivated. I was able to get bans put on marked clothing and skin. I didn't draw anything outwardly vulgar, bunch of weird stuff and band logos, but nothing vulgar or threatening, but I live in the Bible Belt in a very conservative town, so being the weird kid, they tried to hammer down on me in any way they could, despite the fact I never caused trouble for other students and had really good grades. They tried putting a ban on torn and alternative music clothing as well, but that didn't work. Story 62 cookies, specifically the ones you bought in the cafeteria, they were really soft and students would rip them up and take them outside when it was really cold and wait for them to harden up. Once they hardened they would throw them at each other. Cookies hurt, man. Story 63 the internet in the library, because of yours truly, not sure if it's still a thing since it's been many years since. I set up a proxy on a virtual private server and let anyone have a password and a writable CD with proxy settings on it. The computer had an admin password of admin, so configuring the network settings was a breeze. I also included a copy of Kazaa on it as well. This was when schools first got around 5 Mbps 1 Mbps internet. I figured it out when people left MP3s in the computer's document folder, never caught, and made about 300 after accounting for VPS costs. Story 64 bandanas. The administration was worried that we were going to start a gang. We were in middle school, with a class size of around 40 students, in some small rural farm town. Story 65 there was a specific brand of t-shirts. Unfortunately I can't remember the name, but it was a cartoon with some guy who apparently had a huge or was great in bed. It always had some kind of innuendo on it. I think his name was Joe something. Anyway, the t-shirts were banned after one student complained. This was around 94 to 95. Story 66 condiment packets were banned. Kids would twist ketchup packets until they were about to burst and then drop them in the halls after lunch, leaving behind a minefield. The hallways looked like a war zone. Story 67 just recently, some students were busted for having a vape party in one of the bathrooms. It started with a few guys messing around vaping in the bathroom during class and posting it on their Snapchat. Other kids saw the Snapchats and joined in. Soon enough you have about 40 high schoolers jumping around and playing music in a bathroom full of vape. As a result Snapchat is banned on the school's Wi-Fi. There can only be a few people in the bathrooms at a time, and the bathroom doors have to remain opened at all times. Story 68 shorts, hats walking on our lawn. It was a beautiful lawn and they touted the $1 million it cost to upkeep 1999. That said, it was the kind of thing, the lawn, that probably would have been a great community hub for students, but no, off they said. Story 69 spoons. The school banned spoons for a long time. I bet you want a reason. Well, some 8th graders started a rumor that they were going to have a spoon fight. It was going to be all-out war, hitting people with spoons on the back of the head. They never did, nor intended to. They just wanted to see administration overreact. Story 70 for an incredibly brief time in high school purses were banned. To prove a point, a girl walked around with a box of tampons she must have bought at Sam's Club or Costco because it was enormous. Story 71 hookahs, like for their intended usage, which is smoking hookah tobacco shisha. This was in college BTW. I went to a satellite campus for a university, so a smaller school. This was right when hookahs became popular. Our friend had a hookah and it was a nice social time to fire it up on the porches of our dorms. We had townhouses. It would inevitably get the interest of other students and the circle would grow, a great way to meet new people or get to know others better. The guy in charge of student dorms and the likes did not like that at all. He was a pretty big and liked the power he wielded. He did not like that the hookah looked like drug paraphernalia. That it looked terrible when prospective students visited the campus with family. So they outlawed hookah, the only item in the student handbook that is outlawed under 2 sections. The first reason it was outlawed, they stated it is a dirty process, that the foil burnt tobacco remnants and the coal dust is dirty. No mention of it in comparison to the hundreds of cigarette butts that appear during the thaw from winter or the hundreds that never make it into the smoker stations and just sit everywhere. Nope, the waste from a hookah was the tipping point. It's also outlawed under the same rule as hot plates. The open coal is a fire hazard. Yet again, this is bullshit, as smoking indoors was already outlawed, so you had to smoke it outside, yet the coal was deemed a fire hazard, with no consideration that any student was able to pull out a charcoal grill or use one of the charcoal grills located on campus. One coal is a fire hazard, but a heap of 75 coals is considered a barbecue and safe. Story 72 going to the bathroom. When I was a junior, all the freshmen were going into the bathrooms during class to vape. Skylar, if you see this, go yourself, you smug little piece of. Story 73 a game called But Kickers. It's a game where you kick a ball around a circle, and if it bounces twice, a player is blamed and loses a life. Once 3 players have lost all their lives, they line up against a wall in mooning position and everyone else gets a free kick at them. The janitor joined us one day and completely smeared a kid to the point where he couldn't stand for a few minutes. Story 74 my first school kind of banned its own students. I went to a private school when I was in kindergarten and 1st grade. Every Wednesday we had to dress up in slacks, a tucked-in shirt with a collar, and a belt. About halfway through my 1st grade year, a teacher would stand at the front door of the school, turn away any students that didn't look nice enough. Our principal had a couple belts in his office that is heard he would loan out to students that didn't have a belt. One day I was getting ready for school and couldn't find my belt. I told my mom that the principal had some that I could use if we get there early enough to get one. When I got to school, the teacher at the door turned me away and I asked if I could use the principal's belt. I guess he asked the principal, and the principal said those belts are for special kids, not me. Later it came out that the principal had a few students that would come to his office to get a belt. He would make them take their clothes off and do God knows what to them. The school closed down after that year. I guess I'm lucky to not be special. Story 75 in elementary, slap bracelets, and wearing your clothes backwards, in living color was huge, and the following Monday whatever had been on the show was what all the kids were doing. When Criss Cross performed, you can guess what happened. Well, in high school, cell phones, you weren't allowed to have them at all. You had to leave them locked in your car. This was 1995 to 1999. Also, we weren't allowed to wear the same clothes as our friends. As in, if you and your friends made matching shirts of any sort, that was considered gang activity. Oh, we live in the rural South. There weren't any gangs. Story 76. It's not that anything unusual was banned in our school, but that the school was banned entirely from the supermarket next doors. That's right, they decided to refuse the business from an entire school. Then again, you can't call mass shoplifting exactly business. Story 77. Plastic lightsabers. I was in 9th or 10th grade at the time, and the seniors were bringing in toy lightsabers and battling each other in these elaborate, almost choreographed, battles before and after school. We all thought they were being immature and ridiculous, and the administration banned them after a kid who wasn't in on the joke mistook a lightsaber-wielding classmate for an actual threat and ended up karate chopping him in the face. I was fortunate enough to be there for that. I was honestly embarrassed for everyone involved. Story 78. Calling people who were not named Stan. The one Indian-looking kid in the school was called nicknamed Packy. Whole school was told that anyone heard calling him that would be suspended. The next day half the school is now calling him Stan. Story 79. PDA. Public displays of affection were banned in high school. Also, drawing that weird S was banned in middle school because they said it was a gang symbol while we lived in the country. Story 85. Gum. Not because of kids sticking gum to things, but because they'd peel the foil off the wrapper and cover things in it. Tables, walls, books, themselves. Story 81. Double-layered zip-up hoodies. Like when there's an internal lining apart from the actual hoodie. Oh, and cocaine, which is what was being kept between the layers. Also, our student handbook prohibited bringing landmines to school. Story 82. Let's see. Guys' hair couldn't be past your eyes, or touch your shoulders in the back. No unnatural hair colors, no facial piercings, no hats in the building, no canned drinks, flip-flops, no jeans with holes in the knees, and I'm pretty sure you couldn't wear anything with stuff like skulls as a design.